What's up guys, Jack and McCallister here with Toasty Bros Gaming, and today I'm going to be asking McCallister as a noob myself about D&D and how exactly it works.
So yeah, Jackson asked me if I'd answer some questions as a person who's run D&D for about 6 years now. I've run it every Monday and I love it, and when people have questions I'm happy to answer. So he's going to come at this with the perspective of somebody who's played, I think we played one game together.
2+ years ago.
2+ years ago, so these questions are going to be new to me and interesting to hear.
So I got my questions written down. So the first question, kind of in order of operation, is what is D&D and what category of game is it?
D&D is what's considered a tabletop role-playing game. There are multiples of these out there, but tabletop role-playing games pretty much are exactly as they describe. Like when you say role-playing game, you're going to play somebody or a role, and you're going to be doing it at a tabletop instead of, online playing an RPG like Diablo.
Okay. So next question, I bet this is probably one of the most common and I feel like important questions, is what type of gear do I need to get started in D&D? And I say need, not necessarily want.
Got you. So if you want to start playing D&D today, the nice thing is that you theoretically need nothing.
Okay.
If you want to start playing today, the least requirement could be a computer. Because with a computer, you could access all the rules on things like Roll20 or whatnot. Or if you have a good group of friends, if you want to be playing D&D, they might have the gear to loan you.
Okay.
So if you need anything, the gear comes down to your minimum. If you're the dungeon master, you'll probably need the 3 core rule books: the player's manual, the monster manual, and the dungeon master's guide. And between those 3, you can run anything because you have the photocopy in order to get your character sheets. If you have a pencil, you can write all your stuff down. So in reality, it's less of a bar to entry than it's ever been before, because you can just get on a website and play a game, and all of it's virtual. You don't need a pen, pencil, anything like that. So if you have a computer, you can play. If you want to play in person, somebody will probably need the core 3 rule books, a set of dice, just one. Everyone can share if you want, a pencil, and everyone has a character sheet.
And for the dice, you technically need to have like the D20 and the other ones, right?
Oh yeah, so I guess that's it's obvious to me, but it's new to you, which would be the D&D dice are a different set of dice. There are systems, there are tabletop role-playing games, like I think Titans was one that was a long time ago that Will Wheaton rolls a thing over. I think it's called the Shadows of Titan. Really fun one, and it's a D6 based system, so you only need your normal dice.
Okay.
But if you want to play D&D, it calls for D20s down to D4s is the lowest dice you can get.
Okay. What is a good minimum and what is a good maximum players you'd recommend for D&D sessions?
Come with some solid questions.
Well, I mean, I was thinking about it, I was like, would it be weird to play with 2 people? Like just the Dungeon Master and one other person?
So those are called Duet games.
Okay.
And I have done them, and they are interesting because things move a lot faster when it's one-on-one. However, there is a barrier of tension you have to get through, of this weird thing of I'm sitting here
staring
going
at
like,
each other.
oh, what do you want today? It's like, it's hard for me to do my voices and characters with just you and I.
Yeah.
But for smaller games, for people that are new and want to learn about the game, it's a more intimate environment, if you want to call it that. But
could be good for a couple.
It could be, a couple that wants to play that just they can't find more people. If your bar is I can't find enough players, the answer is you only need you and one other person. There are even role-playing games if D&D is not for you. If you want to get into tabletop role-playing, there are solo RPGs where you act as a character writing a journal, and all you need is a journal and paper, and it has rules that you role-play this person writing in their journal.
Oregon Trail.
Oregon Trail. So the maximum number of players you can truly do. There are events where one game, like one giant battle is being run, and there's 20 DMs all run to a table like, hey, somebody just cast Create Storm, so now there needs to be storm environments in yours. And they'll be like, okay, cool, and they're all working together. So there's really no set maximum.
And when you say 20 DMs, that's not even including the players?
Yeah, 20 DMs, each running for maybe a group of 4 to 6.
Wow. Okay.
And so I run a group of 7 every night. Or sorry, every Monday. Every night. Every Monday I do it for a group of 7. But if I could have my way, I'd probably limit it to 4 to 5. I think that's a good entry level because you have enough people that if somebody gets nervous, they can lean on someone else.
Right.
But that way they're not also over top of each other the whole time.
Yeah.
You also don't wait 3 years for your turn in combat.
So this next question is, once again, kind of opinionated, but who is best suited to be the Dungeon Master, and what exactly is the Dungeon Master? Maybe in that order. What exactly is the Dungeon Master, and if the group didn't know who should be the Dungeon Master, what type of personality traits do you think they should have?
So the Dungeon Master is like, if you've ever played the card game Mafia, they're the narrator. So they are everyone, the characters are not. The characters being our players. And so if you've got somebody who is describing for like Aragon, Smeagol, all these people.
Yeah.
That's who the players are. That's what's happening. The Dungeon Master will take the place of Smaug. He will take the place of Sauron. He will be all the villains and die, but he doesn't have a character sheet. He's mostly working off little blocks of stats. So the ideal traits, in my opinion, for a Dungeon Master is the person who wants to play the most should probably be running the game.
That
because
makes sense.
they're the one who's thinking about it when the game has stopped, and you're going to need to do that because the Dungeon Master is the only person who has to prep. Because then I guess you don't have to, but they're going to have more prep compared to anyone else's, and they need to know, oh, I'm running this adventure unless you're playing a really lax game. Somebody who wants to play really badly is likely thinking about it before and after that game. And that person's usually well suited to be your Dungeon Master. But every group needs to have one. And if you think you have ever had an idea that someone would look at and go, that's a neat idea, you should run the game. Because eventually one day you're going to get good enough at it and they're going to look at you and go, that was awesome. And you're going to feel really proud.
Yeah. So in a way, you're like a game developer for a tabletop game, pretty much. Like you're making it how you want it. And do you take input from other players ever? Like they're almost like your beta testers on like they really liked something or they really hated it because they thought it was stupid or whatever?
100%. There's a great video called Living a Creative Life by Matthew Colville. He does a whole series called How to Be a Dungeon Master, I believe is the name. Love him to death. He does some really good stuff, but he says in one of his videos, and I really agree with it, is that a Dungeon Master has more in common with an artist than they do anybody who listens, because you're writing and prepping and doing things,
right?
And you made that connection. You're more like a game developer than you are a gamer at that point.
Okay.
Because yes, when I put them into a room and there's no rules sometimes for D&Ds for certain thing, and I decide I want to have a new system, let's call it let's say socketing from Diablo. I just think socketing's so cool. I want it to exist in my D&D world. It doesn't exist. But I want them to be able to get these gems and attach them to their weapon because it's cool.
Yeah.
So I just say, hey, if you attach it, you get a +1 to damage. Cool.
Okay.
They say cool. So they start slapping gems on there. And then they have a gem axe that's practically more gems than axe at this point. And then I'm like, oh, maybe I talk to them, I say, does this feel broken to you? And they say, no, it feels really fun. And then I look at the game and everyone else is having a bad time. And I say to that player, maybe we need to limit the number of sockets an axe can have.
Yeah.
Things like that. So yeah, you definitely give
it is
and
like
take.
beta testing, yeah.
Players will constantly do that. That's what they call homebrew content. And sometimes you can see like homebrew play tested and then names of people that have played in that setting or in that spot.
So the next question, and you kind of just sort of in a way talked in this, but how do you make sure that everyone has fun in D&D, whether it's new players or even old players that you've been playing with forever?
Oh, I've said this to you a few times because you tell me, you say, oh, I have a friend that wants to play D&D. Shouldn't they be able to come play? And the answer is not every group is for every person.
Yeah.
So if you want to play D&D because you want to kill a monster and you want to move on, you want to kill another monster, move on, clear as many dungeons as possible, then my game would not be for you. Because in my game, I want you to have like more character depth. Mine's more, I would say, emotional or story-based.
Right, okay.
So mine, when we come to a fight, the question is not do we win or lose. It's is Sally going to die or are we going to accomplish our goal? We may not, like if dying or whatnot becomes part of the consequence, but it's not about the loot they want from that goblin. It's about that goblin who hurt somebody they like.
Okay.
So not every game's for every player, and that's a way you can make sure everyone's having fun. Is if someone you notice is just not enjoying themselves, you may say, what part do you enjoy? Do you really enjoy the role play? Are you more of an actor? Are you more of a fighter? Are you more of a metagamer? Is it about making the most optimal character and having the best roles no matter what? Some people like that, the math of it.
And is that something that you can fix midway through a is it a chapter or season or
whatever you want to call them? I've done it recently as episodes and seasons, but in a session is what you'd normally say.
So if you're like halfway through one and you realize someone just really isn't vibing with the rest of the group, do you I'm sure that you could do either of these, but would you A, kick them out, or B, try to find some way for them to fit in better?
So if I have a player that is just sitting there and doing nothing the whole time, or they're just being a little hobgoblin, like they're just being no help, no fun, they're just being a wad to everyone. A really good, for instance, is someone who's playing a evil character. It's really hard for an evil character to get along with a group of heroes. But you can play an evil character, but it's like, what do I do when they want to do something that makes everyone uncomfortable? Like they want to either steal from somebody in the party, or they want to do something inappropriate to an NPC, which I'm playing, so I don't know why you'd ever try, but I've had it happen where somebody did this, and it made me so uncomfortable that what you'd usually do is, as the Dungeon Master, you control the world, and the moment someone makes you uncomfortable, or you're noticing that somebody's not vibing, you can change the pacing of everything into words, which is they attack. And everyone will go, who attacks? And while they're rolling initiative and finding out, you start looking at your list of people of, okay, they're in a bar. Who would possibly pick a fight at this bar?
Okay.
And then start a combat. Like, if you don't know, you can always change the pace. So that person who's sitting back might hear the words they attack and they smile because they're like, I've just been sitting here. I don't want to talk to you, and I want to hit people with my axe. So you can change it even in the middle of a session. But at some points, if they do things that are weird or not cool, you have to like cut the lights and be like, hey man, we're playing this for fun. Like no bringing up death of certain people or people don't have this disease here because it makes people a little sad. Think of real life. We're playing this game for fun.
Right. Okay. That answers that really well. Okay. So next question is, because I had never seen D&D until we played on the stream. I think we played for about 3 hours or something like that. Yeah. And do you think it'd be the best for, let's say Johnny wants to get into D&D, wants to play it, of course, because I think most people want to play it. Do you recommend that they watch it first or just go straight in to trying to find a group and playing with them?
I think straight into a group is the best way. However, that's not likely going to be the case for many people. Most people cannot find a group.
Yeah.
So they watch it. And then they think every DM is going to be Matt Mercer or they're going to be Brennan Lee Mulligan. Is that people,
really like really into it, basically?
These are people who are being paid to do this, like to produce stories that are so engaging with players that are so good at acting that it transcends what a normal game would be like. If you may leave a session after you've played for a year and a half and be like, wow, that felt like one from the shows I watched. But when you start out, you're going to be going for Lord of the Rings, and where you're going to land is like, It's Always Sunny. You're going to be like, oh, I'm a cool barbarian, I'm a little edgy, and you're going to get into a place, and next thing you know, you're like 3 pints deep, and you're like fighting a bugbear. And you're like, I thought we were supposed to be badass adventurers.
Yeah.
So if you start out with players that don't know what's going on, and nobody has experience, your expectations are as low as the game is providing.
Okay.
Because you develop taste long before skill. And so you're not upset things aren't dramatic or cool because you're experiencing it for the first time. But if you have a set of goggles that you've seen other people play, you're like, this isn't D&D. No, this just isn't the D&D games you've watched. These people, your DM is new. He doesn't know that that's supposed to work that way.
Okay. So next up we have, what do you recommend for a person who is shy or nervous about role-playing, which I'm going to be honest, I feel like that's a majority of the population. Like, how do you get it? You said Matt Mercer, for example.
Yeah.
How do you get like yourself and other players to that point? And what accommodations have you or will you make for players who are a little shy or nervous about role-playing?
So funny you asked. There was a player in my current campaign who is somebody who is not a big talker. He gets a little bit nervous, but he likes to sit there with his friends, because who doesn't, and play a game. And when we first started, I didn't understand, what do you do for a person who sits there and doesn't interact? You have to realize some people don't want to. They want to sit there and go, oh, this is fun. Some people watch a movie and talk the whole time.
Right.
Some people watch a movie silently.
Yeah.
He likes to watch a movie and relax and enjoy the movie. So when you have a player that's not engaging, you just need to confirm with them, hey, are you having fun after the session? Just make sure. But if there's somebody who's quiet, don't throw their character in the middle of a bar off where they're all getting up and trying to like wave their dick around and prove who's the coolest, because then he's having to do something that makes them uncomfortable.
Right.
So if you're looking for how to get your players started, however, and starting to get more into role play, because people when they start, I think will just be using their voice and they'll say, I walk over and I hit him. And that is just as acceptable as someone who goes, I walk over and I strike him.
And then they actually crack the
And then they crack the table. It's great. Now, both of them are acceptable, but if you want to get your players started and more comfortable, I usually say as the Dungeon Master, you have to leap first. So you, in my opinion, make the most incredulous sounding character. Pick something like that. Yeah. And then they can't sound stupider than that. Okay. So do that, and that kind of breaks the barrier. And then try to work on things like, we call them moose ears, which is, hey, this is out of character. Like if they're talking, and they're like 15 minutes into an argument whether kill or not kill this person, one of them might go, wait, guys, out of character, are we just trying to get into the door? The door's open. And they're like, oh yeah, we got lost in the weeds. We'll move past.
So moose ears is like the I'm breaking character for a second, basically?
Yes, that way, if they can't do a voice, you still know, hey, I'm out of character. And it promotes that everything said with them down is, I'm talking. Like if you say, let's kill him, they heard that. But if they say, hey guys, can we just kill him?
So what if someone's like getting like a phone call? That'd be another example of like, they shouldn't just say, oh guys, let me take. Obviously probably they shouldn't have the phones on, but they do. It's something important. Would you move serious? I gotta take this real quick, guys. The
thing is, if you really are struggling, if they want to get into it and it's like the group is as a whole wants to, then yes, they should. In theory, because if everyone's trying really hard, then you should start doing that. But you come to a balance at some point. This is just an early level of saying in character, out of character,
Yeah.
mixing in and out. Because the way I did it was I first had my players just as like a little side mission, pretend to be these 7 kids running through the sewers. And I just essentially had them pick characters like from the Goonies and just be like, one's a shy kid, one's a brave kid, one's a little snotty kid. And I just said, pretend to them, I was like, but do the voices, just please do the voices. And it was just a 1 session thing. And after that session, for the next 5 years, they did voices. One of them picked the most strenuous voice for his like big warrior guy, and would end the sessions always coughing because he picked the most. Oh, my name is like it killed him. It killed him.
Yeah, that sounds horrible.
Those are some the little things that I would do to try to get my players in character.
If like for that guy that you're just not talking about, what if it eventually got to the point where he's like, dude, this is actually like my vocal cords, like my doctor told me to stop. Would you find a way, almost like, you know how when they need to kill a character off in a movie because they decide they no longer want to be an actor in that movie, they find a way to incorporate it. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes suddenly they're just gone. But I think the smart thing to do is to find an excuse. Do you ever do that?
So as far as retconning things goes, for things like that, no, they could just go, oh, I'm sorry, my voice has been stopped up. Because we don't care. Okay. Like if they want to jokingly say that the whole time they've had a sore throat,
right,
and that's why their characters sound that way. But some things we don't need canon reasons, especially in the beginning when they start learning their voice. They're going to pick some weird ones. They're going to be embarrassed. They're going to be like, I'm sorry, I'm trying to figure this one out. Because they're just doing it. But like if they can't do a voice, and so I have one player who, for his life, can't do any impression. I seriously don't understand it. I thought people had to. I had him meet with, not had him. We were at a party and a real speech pathologist showed up. And I said, come examine this idiot. And I brought him over and I said, why can't he do voices?
Yeah.
And she had to talk me through that I was the crazy one, not him.
Okay.
And I thought that was wild because I thought anyone could do voices. But she said, for him, it's just difficult, and to explain why to me. And the general thing we started doing for him was, if you're talking to a character, you can only do so many voices. I can only do so many voices.
Yeah.
Only so many bartenders can be the same hello there guy. So just hunch your shoulders forward or push them back or pretend to scroll notes. Use some action. So if you're playing a nervous character, they just do this when you talk, and they're not doing this, which is out of character.
Right. Okay. So this is like actually one of the first things you kind of answered, but do you need a rule or guidebook to play, or is winging it ever an option?
If you want to play Dungeons and Dragons, as it stands, you should have a rulebook, because that's what makes it Dungeons and Dragons. Because if you can have just as much fun going out in the woods and hitting each other with sticks, that's called LARPing. But it's not Dungeons and Dragons.
Okay.
However, it's a role-playing game. If you're pretending that you're hurt, you come up with whatever rule system you want. There's anything. If you just want to sit down at a table and pretend to be fantasy characters with your friends, you could put a deck of cards in front of you and just say what you do and draw from the top of the deck, and then say, oh, queen, that's good. So kings are bad.
Is that the term? I've seen LARPing before, and I honestly don't know what it means. If I was to do that, if I was to play a game that wasn't D&D, I just made it up. I'm like, this is a fun fantasy game. Is that LARPing, or is that something different?
LARPing is technically any live action role playing. So as tabletop role playing game.
I never realized that was an abbreviation.
Yeah. So tabletop role playing game.
Yeah.
LARPing is live action role playing.
Okay.
So you are playing whatever your rules are. If it's if I hit your arm, you can't use your arm, or if it's I hit you, your arm does 2 damage, you have 3 health.
Okay.
You can decide what those rules are.
That's LARP. All right.
But it's really up to you what you want to play. But you technically would need, at minimum, I'd say, if you have a somewhat experienced DM, you just need the player's handbook. You technically don't need to run into a monster. Or if you do, people can guess what those are. It's just when you're beginning, you don't know how the rules work, so you probably need all 3.
It's the same as like any other game where one person could eventually memorize every rule perfectly, and in theory, you don't need a book, but otherwise, you need a book for it to be
D&D. Because I haven't cracked open a D&D book in
a little bit, I assume.
For rules.
Yeah. Okay, so what do you do if a player is unable to make a session, or something happens, they don't want to be involved anymore? What do you do at that point?
Everyone's got different rules on what they do for a player who can no longer show up or just to stop coming. That's one of the biggest things that happens to groups, is they can fall out.
Right.
I don't know how ours has been so lucky, but we roll through, and if a player sends me a text saying McCallister can't make it tonight, my usual response is, okay, I never put them in combat. I have 7 players, so I don't need 7 players to beat most of my encounters. Okay. That usually gives them an overhanded advantage, and I just adjust things on the fly to make it more balanced.
So like stats of the person they're fighting or whatever, you might lower them for. So it's 100%. Almost like scaling, basically.
Yeah, you scale it. This is where it has more in common with the game developer. If I said it was 7 goblins and then 5 players are missing, it's 2. I probably shouldn't do 7 goblins.
Yeah.
But the weird part will be when you eventually run into an issue where you told them in the session before, and they've been working up to this, and this is a big fight, and it's the Elite Four, like Pokemon. You've got the Elite Four. You can't suddenly scale them and make it 3 people. That would ruin all that they've been working up for. So a lot of times, you can put them in combat and just have them work. You roleplay them if the character's comfortable, but oftentimes at risk of them dying. So you kind of got to play it. There's 3 main routes. Have them go on autopilot, where they're essentially always around, and just have them occasionally use what's called the help action, which gives people a better role.
So they're like NPCs at that point?
You just play them like an NPC. You have them interact minimally. The other is they black out. They were sleeping the whole time. Oh, nice of you to finally join us. You're awake. Because usually if they end at a tavern, you just say that person drank too much. Or number 3 is you fully play their character for them, which I don't like.
And when you say you mean the Dungeon Master, not
you make
another...
them an NPC, but you play them fully.
And has there ever been a weird thing where like one player plays 2 people? I mean, theoretically, could you? If you're
you
really
could
good?
100% play 2 characters if you wanted them to. I've had some events where they tell me they play a character for a year and a half. We end that campaign. They beat the big dragon. It's over. I have them roll up new characters, right? And so now they used to be Group A and Group B, but during Group B's adventure, they run into a player from Group A. And so I tell them, hey, do you want to tell me what they would do?
Yeah.
Because they're in a situation now that I don't want to take away from what your head canon is. You know better than me, even though I write the whole story. I don't know what Morel would do if he was encountered with fire.
So is there any groups online or in person to find a good team to play with? And if you want to name off some actual resources or just what you recommend, like McCallister, I got this friend, he wants to play D&D, he's so desperate. Where does he go?
Yeah, I would say that you really have 3 options. One, you pull your groups of friends that you know, and you start asking anybody who wants to play D&D. And you find 2-3 people. That's all you need if you're going to be the Dungeon Master. Now, if you're going to be a little baby and say, oh, I don't want Dungeon Master, I just want to play, then you're going to have a really hard time. Number 2, you can go to Adventurers League on D&D's website on Wizard of the Coast. Adventurers League is their like standard format that you can go to any place and they're all playing with the same rules.
Oh, okay.
Because if you come to my house, I play with some extra rules that don't exist in the book. But in Adventurers League, we try to keep it, we being the people that run, try to keep it to standard.
Okay.
And then third option is like Roll20 or any online tabletop, Foundry, so on. You can usually find a Discord or just go on there and you can apply to games.
Okay.
And they can say, what's your experience playing? And be like, oh, this. And they're like, what do you like to do? And I'll say, like, I like to battle. This. And there's games that are composed of hundreds of thousands of players because the DM runs just games every night that they have available. They just pull who's available to play, and they take those 4 characters, and they're a member of a guild, and every person who plays in their sessions is a member of that guild, and they level up and play together in some big grand game that they develop.
And is there a competitive scene for D&D at all?
No, there's no competitive. The best thing you could do, like I guess you could say the height of Dungeons & Dragons playing, like your best things you could do would be become a renowned DM who gets invited to like D&D in a castle would be like the peak.
Okay.
Or you run your own show. That's the peak of
So
DMing.
really getting paid to do it rather than winning or losing and making money.
Yeah, no, it's once you are creating content that's so good, people want to make fan art about your stuff. That's usually when you've gotten to the point of your podcast now can sustain you.
Okay.
Kind of deal.
Okay. All right, and then this is pretty much the last question, and then after that, if there's anything you want to add, feel free. But is there, we talked about this a little bit actually, is there gateway games in order to softly get into D&D, or do you not even really recommend doing that?
Baldur's Gate 3.
Well, yeah.
Baldur's Gate, no, that game, if you can find any enjoyment in it, you can probably find enjoyment in D&D. And if you find no enjoyment in that game, you probably won't find much because it is 100% you're playing D&D.
Right.
I have never seen something emulated so well, but if you like Baldur's Gate 3, that's probably your biggest litmus test. But second, if you've grown up and you've at all the idea of D&D has appealed to you, there's a game of it you could like.
Right.
You just need the right people to play with you. I'm pretty confident in that because everyone I've ever met, I've gotten to play, and at some point during the game, even my dad I've had play, and at some point he was laughing. And I don't think he want to play it every night.
Yeah.
He's not that kind of person, but you can have fun when adults want to get invested and they want to have fun, just like they did back in the day. Like everyone, if you show up to a party and there's nothing but drinks, that's one thing. But if you show up and there's drinks and fireworks, everyone's like, oh, I'm excited to get like this climax of fireworks at the end of the night. Everybody wants to be invested in something, and it can be your game. it could be your tabletop.
Okay, well,
I have one last thing, which is what I love about D&D. I think it's just a crazy fact.
Okay.
That is, if you end up deciding to get into this hobby and you enjoy it, and you find a group that you can play with for maybe a year or 2 years, know that one day you're going to be meeting those people and you're going to look back, and the place that they've done, I don't know where I heard this, but I believe it's true because it definitely happens. When you look back at your memories of playing D&D and you think of what happened, so when I think of 5 weeks ago when they fought the big king of my ending sessions,
yeah.
when you look back at how that's done, it is recorded in the area of the brain as having done that activity. It is not recorded as what your memory will remember is Bjorn, the character I'm playing, I slayed the King of Landervault.
Right.
You don't remember it as I sat at a table as McCallister described the King of Landervault.
With
your
friends,
brain
yeah.
makes the shortcut, and so I'm telling you, your hindsight of playing D&D is like war buddies.
Okay.
Like you will talk to them, be like, remember that time that like 6 years ago, Jared rolled a nat 20 to break a snake. And I said, you can't break a snake. And he rolled, got a natural 20, and we still jokingly call him the snake breaker. And it's like, I can 100% remember that thing. He goes, I'll break the snake. And I said, I remember the argument. You cannot do that. And then he breaks a snake. And it's like, that's recorded so deeply in my brain. And the good moments will always be there. And I can only remember a few sessions that are bad that have been ingrained so deeply as well.
Right.
But even the details of those are hesitant and fuzzy. But all the victories we shared as a group,
feels like they really happened, even though it's fantasy. It's like it was really there.
100%.
Yeah.
It feels just as rewarding.
Well, cool. All right. Well, that's all the questions. So, yeah, Toasty Bros Gaming, we're hoping to get hopefully more content up like this, and maybe one day McCallister will be brave enough to even get some recordings or live streams of a session.
I don't know.
We'll see. We'll see.
Difficult.
All right. See you guys.
Peace.
Oh, wait, we're recording. No, I'm just kidding. Could you imagine?
Oh my God, dude, I'd be kind of tilted.